The following is a presentation of the Eagles Sports Network.
We're back, season 2. Oh, you went with the Talons. Episode 5. We got the coach. We got the car. We don't have the coffee yet. Adam Cavalier, voice of the Eagles, alongside Carson-Newman, offensive line coach Joe Ray. Joe, I feel right off the bat we need to talk about the elephant in the room from last year's coaches and cars getting coffee, and that is that you absolutely, you showed the fact that you're a 3-time Jacobs blocking trophy winner by powering through a massive leg cramp for about the final 5 minutes of the interview. Nobody knew.
Well, here's a bigger secret. It actually wasn't a leg cramp. It was a cramp right in the abdominals.
Oh, that's even worse.
Oh, yeah, it was a tough one. Because, you're sitting in the seat, you're already kind of crouched up. So the muscles are already pretty intense. And you caught me right off the field. I'm thirsty. I'm dehydrated. And it's like, well, what's better to work on your hydration than some ice black coffee? So it caught me on that ride bad. But I think I covered it pretty well. Not many people knew until I pointed it out.
You did cover it well, and it speaks, I think, to the appropriate mindset of an offensive lineman. Fair bit coming back from last year. It's not like you have the entire line back, but you've got some guys who have been in the program for a little bit, and the one that probably comes to mind first is Christian Jones, your all-conference tackle. A lot of guys to discuss, a lot of guys to talk about, but let's start with him and what he's capable of doing at that tackle position.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Christian, he's got a really, really high ceiling. So it's exciting to be able to have him back this upcoming year. And, he had a really good season this past fall and had a lot of momentum going into this past spring. So, with him having such a high ceiling, him being able to show up every day, it's just his attention to detail that helps him continue to progress. Because a lot of times when you got a lot of ability, at that point, you got to start focusing on those minute details to end up continuing progressing. So he's done a really good job with that here lately.
You had a line that was nicked and dinged pretty well last year, and a guy that I think of who was having a great camp until he wasn't because of an injury, and that was Hunter Lucy. But he's back from injury, and at least at left guard appears to have seized the day, I suppose.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. He had a phenomenal camp last year, and I was feeling real confident of being able to find a way to get him in the mix of being one of those 5 guys who we went out there with this past season. And he got through that injury, and he was able to sit there and say, like, hey, you know what, I want to be the guy. And he's been working really hard. He's definitely turned into one of the leaders in the room, which is exciting. I think we got a lot of leaders that are kind of blossoming a little bit that's in our offensive line room. So shows a lot of promise. And, the cool thing with him is, him and a lot of our guys in our room got a story. But, when I say a story, a lot of them are really building a testimony, which is really awesome to see them kind of build on.
I think the one that certainly stands out above, and this is not to diminish others, it's crazy, is Colt Sinor.
Right.
Right. Now a 2-time cancer survivor. Mm-hmm. Spent his offseason going through another battle, and is still here and still very much in the mix. And Carson-Newman football had the Mayo Clinic Comeback Player of the Year and Antonio Wimbush in 2018, coming back from an ACL tear, one of the all-time great running backs in Carson-Newman history. I would say Colt probably deserves to be in the running for that award as well at some point in his career.
It's insane. It's awesome, the story that he has, but just the fathom the thought of him beating cancer 2 times and then playing a sport such as football, collegiate football, which is wild. So, I mentioned, testimonies that are in the room, they're endless. Everybody has a testimony. And, you know, it's awesome to be able to hear their stories, but it's even more special, like kind of from my perspective, to kind of see their day in and day out of kind of watching their story kind of build and progress too.
Have those testimonies helped build leadership within the room?
I believe it's definitely helped build a lot of leadership in the room. You know, I think, you know, them being able to build that relationship with each other, and, you know, us being able to sit down as a team in a football program and get a little bit more deeper into, you know, having those devotionals where we have a lot more deeper talks. Like now they're really trying to get in tune with each other, of actually understand who they are and why they act the way they may, how they react to things and the things that they care about. And, you know, at that point, that relationship starts to grow to where they're kind of all watching each other kind of develop and end up kind of see their story kind of unravel and pan out from there. So I think, you know, overall that leadership between those guys and those relationships, it just helps end up growing each other day in and day out.
I think another guy that you point to is your starting center last year for at least part of the year, Brian Doe. That's a guy that bounced around Houston Baptist to St. Anselm,
Right.
and it feels like he has finally found a home
Right.
in Carson-Newman. Fair?
Oh yeah, no doubt about that. And it's funny, they kind of call him the old man in the room now because, you know, he's on his 6th year, and, you know, with that, you know, it comes with a lot of experience, which, you know, is really awesome. You know, he's definitely been a part of a lot of different offenses, and, you know, he's the guy in the room where, you know, if guys got questions, you know, they kind of lean on him a little bit to kind of find those answers and fill in those holes and those gaps. So it's awesome to be able to have Brian here, you know, with all that experience. And, you know, with him being all those different places, he comes a little seasoned, I guess we could say, which is kind of cool.
Middle through the left side of the line, fairly settled, fairly veteran.
Right.
The right side, a little bit new.
Right.
You don't have too much longer before it's showtime on August 31st. What does that side of the line need to do to settle itself?
Well, that side of the line is interesting because, you know, right now I think this is where we're at to point where in our offensive line room, like, we got a lot of competitive depth, you know, and I think that's something we've been working really, really hard here for the past couple of years to end up saying, like, hey, you know what, we got a offensive line group where we got a really good, you know, group of guys that can go out there with that first 5. But, you know, that second line that we have, too, that kind of rotates in and out, those are guys that we feel confident in that we can send out there and still be able to be productive. So, you know, that right side, you know, that competitive depth has been awesome. It's fun to see. And, you know, I think the guys really enjoy it just because, you know, it adds that extra competitiveness, that extra pressure on top of them as well, too.
People that haven't been seen yet, Rick Gentahome was with the program last year, had to sit out due to transfer rules, transferring in conference. He's available to the team. Nick Hart didn't play a ton last year, was on the roster. He's new. He's available. What do those guys do that kind of sets them apart?
You know, I think starting with Nick Hart, you know, just being able to have, he came in as a mid-year last year. So, you know, he kind of ended up, he was with us for the spring, then he ended up being with us, you know, throughout this past fall. Him being able to develop and being able to try to end up staying a little bit more consistent has been able to where he's been able to separate himself a little bit more. All right, and then, you know, you got Rick. He had to end up, you know, sit out that fall. So, you know, he's got a little bit more of an edge to him because, you know, he had to sit out all the fall. And now he's at the point where it's like, okay, now he's at that competitive depth level where it's like, okay, you know, you want to be the guy, already had to sit out a year. So, you know, they both do a lot of really good things that ends up, you know, being able to have them in the mix.
I want to toss out another name for a guy fairly new, didn't play a lot last year, Fletcher Gibson.
Yes.
You have a lot of guys that at least look the part of what you'd hope an offensive lineman would look like, and Fletcher certainly qualifies for that.
Yeah, there's no doubt about it. You know, I think Fletcher, he might be one of the funnest guys to watch in the weight room. And big weight room guys. And, you know, on top of that, too, I think something that's awesome, you know, I mentioned leadership a little bit earlier. He's definitely molded into, like, one of our best leaders on the team. And that's fun to watch. You know, he just came off his freshman year. So, you know, him being a little bit younger, he's built a lot of trust around his peers and his teammates, which is awesome. Like, whenever he ends up speaking on, you know, on topics, or when he speaks up and wants to talk to everybody, you know, everybody shuts up and they listen. And it's cool because, at that point, he's starting to understand how to be a leader, when to speak up and say something, how to try to lead by example. All those things, these are a lot of traits that he's built throughout this past year. It's been really cool to see.
Another guy that, again, played sparingly last year, but saw some pretty relevant reps. Claude Vangelis. Yes. As opposed to the previous couple years, it feels like you've got not just one, and you kind of alluded to it, not just one, but you can toss out 2, maybe even 3 different lines and feel comfortable, confident in winning. How does Claude factor into that?
Claude's awesome too. I mean, Claude, he came in, about a year and a half ago, and I think the best trait that Claude brings to the table is just him being physical. And he has physicality, any type of drill that we have, even if he's just holding the shield, he's going to end up being really physical, with whoever it is. So, he definitely brings that type of intensity, to the table in the offensive line room.
It's tough, at least historically, it's felt like, to make an impact as a true freshman on the offensive line. Who do you turn to? Who do you look to as a freshman who can factor in, potentially make a little bit of a difference this year?
For sure. I mean, I think this freshman class was one of the best freshman class offensive linemen that we've had in a while, probably since I've been here. And, I think, there's a handful of names in there. I know we got Xavier McKinney that's doing some good things for us at tackle right now. I know Zach Turk, he's been doing a good job sitting there, getting a little bit in the mix a little bit, being able to get a lot of reps throughout camp. And, we got Dayton Jernigan as well, too, who's been getting some pretty good reps right now. So it's been awesome to be able to have those guys come in and try to transition, pretty fast right now. But, they're getting some good reps in, and it's going to be fun to see them develop.
Thank you. We're here. Where are you going with?
I mean, the biggest iced black coffee that we can get.
The biggest iced black coffee that you can get.
No cream.
No cream.
No sugar. Extra black. Not as much ice.
24 ounce cold brew, nothing in it?
Nothing in it. That's fine. That's perfect.
I'm going to do a large dirty iced chai, please.
Oh, wow. Getting dirty today.
Yeah. I mean, offensive line, that's what you do.
Oh,
right?
yeah. Get nasty.
All right. Give me 1 moment. Our system is down over on
Okay.
the side, so let me bring it up on the other end.
Sure.
All right, we'll have
You got to queue up the right drink.
It's only right.
And I need a little sweet. I'm not going to do the straight black. I want a little sweetness in there.
Yeah,
little, to just make it a little unhealthier.
That's right. That's right. I didn't think about that. Maybe I should have added something.
No. I mean, I'm thankful. I mean, you've stayed consistent. This is what you did last year.
That's who I am.
Not many coaches have stayed consistent with their beverage choices.
I talk about consistency all the time. It's a real thing. I mean,
you don't get to be a 3-time Jacobs Blocking Trophy winner without consistency.
You find something that works and you just stick with it.
With maybe a little bit of anger and a chip.
I mean, just a little hate in your heart. That's all. That's all.
Just the tiniest amount of hate. But there's also a lot of love. There's a lot of.
Well, you can't have hate without love.
They are the
exactly. You got to be able to try to counteract with it.
They're not opposites. They're actually, I think they're the same because they both are extreme emotions. In fact, the opposite of love and the opposite of hate is apathy. There's your philosophical.
I'm gonna bring you in to tutor some of our guys on philosophy for this fall. I'm like, hit up Adam Cavalier.
Mistake.
Send you to him.
Mistake. There's your weird nugget for the day. So you rattled off some freshmen. I do want to note, watching in camp, at least for your new, I don't know that I've seen new look like this in some time. I don't know that's a fair comparison to make.
That chai,
Yes.
it's $6.58.
Okay.
And then I haven't rung up the other one.
Okay.
Yet, so, just letting you know. Would you be able to pay for that now?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I think it's. I don't know if it's a fair comparison to make because, again, let's face it, Kevin Day was a consensus All-American at 5'10". We listed him as 268, but let's face it, he was probably 220 pounds when he was a Jacobs Walking Trophy winner and a consensus All-American center. You clearly didn't need that size, thank you, on the O-line that potentially you do now that it's more of a multiple veer option attack than when it was the true split back veer. But size-wise, this is a physically impressive group that has been brought in. Thank you. Is that necessary, or is this just the way that this needs to be now?
I wouldn't say it's necessary. I wouldn't say it's the way that it needs to be. I think, some guys, that come with a little bit more size, up front, it gives you a little bit more length.
Yes.
It gives you a little bit more length up front. That way, you can end up being able to do a little bit more things, especially at that tackle position with your pass pro. That helps out a ton. But, a lot of those offensive line attributes, being able to have snappy hips, quick feet, a lot of those things always play into the mix. So, being able to still have those attributes as well, too, end up making you be able to put together a good offensive line.
The room as a whole.
Right. 2 straws.
Thank you.
A beautiful large dirty chop.
That is beautiful. Look at this.
And a large fork.
Let me see. You know what? I passed the look test, Joe, right?
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yours, it's going to get the job done. Look test.
Hey, it can look good all day, but did it get the job done? That's always the question.
This is going to get the job done. I guarantee this is going to get the job done.
That's good.
Yeah, again, we've been through it. 60 Beans does good quality coffee.
We need an official sponsorship with them, though. Is there a partnership we can
It needs to be one. It needs to be one.
I
60
appreciate
Beans
this coffee. Thank you.
And again, still ice black coffee. That utilitarian. It is the nature. I suppose Johnson Jameson kind of went similar. It's the nature of the line. You just, it is what it is.
yes.
What needs to happen over the next 2 weeks before you hit game day for this crew to fully solidify itself? What's the next step?
I mentioned it a few moments ago, with the ice black coffee, just making sure that we stay consistent with everything that we've built on. We got some guys that were here, throughout the spring that, had some really good reps during spring ball. Being able to take that momentum into the summer, I can tell, they got a lot of really good work in over the summer as well, too. So taking all that momentum into this camp and throughout this fall, I think that'll end up helping, be able to solidify everything up front. And, some work with the defensive line and Coach Jameson. You can't get enough of that stuff, set up some pods with them. It's awesome. We love to get that stuff in every day. So I think all that together in a bundle will help be able to solidify everything and push everything through.
Kind of touched on it very briefly earlier. Weight room. You got some strength in there, probably owed to, one, the dedication of your players, but also the programs that Jeff Boschman and Ryan Henry have put together. What kind of improvements has this front made in the weight room over the last 6 months?
Jeff's been doing awesome with us. Jeff, he always wants to talk with me, and especially Coach Jameson, with us having, those big guys up front, of just finding things that, that are more position specific for them. So, they're always watching, at practice, seeing what our indie drills look like. So they do a really, really, really great job to get all that stuff to transition from the weight room to the field. And I think, what you find with a lot of our guys in the offensive line room is they've been very dedicated to the weight room. I know Hunter Lucy hit a big pivotal moment one day here, really actually I think it might have been about 3 weeks ago right now, being able to squat 700 pounds. I mean, that was massive because, you know, I know that was a huge goal that he was working towards. And, you know, I keep talking about, you know, the testimony of all our guys. Like every single offensive lineman in our room has a testimony and building on top of one on top of that as well, too. And just being able to see him hit that type of weight that I knew he was working towards was awesome. And, you know, I mentioned Fletcher doing really well in the weight room as well, too. And, you know, he's got some crazy, insane numbers as well. And, you know, Jeff has got his fun little crew of his T-shirts that he passes out, you know, of all those Savage guys, which is fun. But they got a lot of energy in there. It's awesome. It's cool. And they do a great job.
You hit on one guy that we hadn't hit on yet, and Savage keyed it.
Savage. Yes.
Savage.
Yep.
When you have a room as large as the O-line.
it's tough to get everybody out there. It's tough.
But he's a guy at center making a difference, no question.
Right. Yeah, he's came in. He's came all the way from good old California. So, you know, Tennessee's a little different for him. It's a little bit different, safe to say. But he's came in. He's transitioned well. He's done some great things throughout camp as well, too. So, you know, we're very excited to be able to have him here and be able to, you know, talk about that competitive depth, you know, seeing like, hey, who will those 5 guys be, you know, whenever it comes, you know, to game 1. So, you know, I think, you know, him being here, it helps push everybody as well, too. And, you know, we got Dason Renew that's also came in as well. Being able to come here and be able to have that competitive depth as well, too, fighting.
Coach? Got your coffee.
Got my coffee.
Time to get out of the car. Season 2, episode 5.
Episode 5, Big Talents.
Done, dusted. Joe Ray, Adam Cavalier. Thanks for watching.